September. We're with Australia, I said ranked at number 7, and Wales is ranked number 3 in the world, Georgia 13th, and Uruguay 18th. It's not an easy pool, but I do know it's only 2 teams from each pool that can progress through to the quarterfinals. Is that right?
Yes, yeah, two teams from each pool play off to the quarterfinals. You know, every pool's a tough pool in the World Cup. There's no easy path to the quarterfinals, but certainly, you know, we're looking at our pool and looking at our potential squad with the talent we've got and the work we can do, you know, during our assembly. That we're certainly targeting a goal of qualifying for the playoffs. That's really important for us, and you know, which means probably realistically we need to knock out either Australia or Wales. You know, we can't underestimate Georgia either.
Exactly.
You know, a very strong up and coming team, and I think, you know, that they'll be going to the World Cup with a similar aim as us. But you know, we play Australia in the first match in our opening game, so you know, we're going to have to be really on top of our task in that game and hit the ground running and really take the challenge to the Australian team. I think that, you know, they'll be under a lot of pressure. You know, they haven't had such good results in the last couple of seasons, but I think that, you know, in the World Cup year they'll get their act together and be a big challenge for us. But you know, it's a game. I believe that you know, if we work hard enough in our preparation, we get everything right, that we can. It's one that we can win.
Yes, I'm sure we can. I have the confidence as well. Now, what are Fiji's rugby team warm-up matches looking like now for the Rugby World Cup campaign?
Yeah, so we're playing, you know, very much a game-based preparation. We'll be together for about 10 weeks before we go to Japan. So across the 10 weeks, we'll play 6 matches. We'll start here in Fiji on July 13. We'll play the New Zealand Maori. So that's a really good game to kick off our campaign. Then we'll travel down to New Zealand and play the New Zealand Maori in New Zealand the following week. Then it's a trip up to Japan for the Pacific Nations Cup. We'll play Japan in Japan as the first round of the Pacific Nations Cup. Then return to Fiji for the final 2 rounds against Canada and Samoa on the 4th and the 11th of August. So that's the first block of our match program, and then the boys will have a short break and then another week's camp here before we go to New Zealand to play Tonga as our final match before we travel to Japan. So we'll play them in Auckland on August the 31st.
That's a lot of games, so a lot of warm-up matches. You happy with all these warm-up matches?
Yeah, it's great for us. I mean, one of the disadvantages we have against some of the big countries like Australia and Wales is that they play more matches than us.
Okay.
And they have more time together. You know, the Rugby Championship and the Six Nations series. So in a normal year, they have a lot more time together than us. So it's difficult for us on the short assemblies we do. But World Cup, a little bit different. We sort of can bridge that gap by being together. You know, by the time we play Australia and Sapporo on September 21, we would have been together for 12 weeks. So we can do a lot of hard work in 12 weeks, and we can really get our game together to take on the challenge of the Rugby World Cup.
Yes, I'm sure we can. Now, how do you expect your team to perform in the Rugby World Cup?
Well, we're going to have to be absolutely on top of our game. You know, big challenges as we've already talked about with Australia and Wales. You know, to the really top tier 1 teams in the world, and you know, Georgia as well. You know, similar to us, they're right up the top of the tier 2 nations, and they'll be targeting this World Cup as their opportunity to get to the playoffs as well. So, you know, we've got some big challenges there. Uruguay, you know, probably give us an opportunity to try some different combinations and give some of our other players, so make sure everyone gets good game time across the first 2 games, and you know, hopefully by the time we get to Oita when we're playing Wales in the last round of the pool phases, that we've already secured our final spot and perhaps playing for the top spot in the pool, which we could do if we could beat Wales.
Oh, that's, I mean, I'm sure we can. I mean, country pride, maybe we put a bit of that in it. That might drive the boys, you know, to do something, to actually get to the quarterfinal.
Well, I mean, the motivation for representing Fiji and representing the country and the people is massive for our players. You know that they play for different clubs all around the world. You know in a professional career to earn money for them, for their families and the people back home, and to represent the Flying Fijians is a great honour for our players, and I think it's an advantage we've got that it means so much to our players.
Yes.
I think other teams spend a lot of time trying to create some team culture where we've already got the team culture within the pride of their homeland, the pride of Fiji, pride of their families, and representing their people.
Yes, that is so true. I mean, you've said that preparation for the Fiji rugby team to any Rugby World Cup is a challenge. And could you just tell me what is the difference between the preparation of a Tier 1 and a Tier 2 rugby team for a Rugby World Cup tournament?
Well, I think the main difference is access to the players. I mean, you look at Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Wales, England, all those big countries. They have a lot more access to their players, and they spend more time together. So
Yes.
In a team sport like rugby, time together is important because
Teamwork.
it's not just about talent. It's also about teamwork and
Yes.
team cohesion. So that's their advantage in the World Cup year. As we've said, that advantage is less because we do get a good block of time together
Right.
across July, August, and into September. I think probably the other big difference between the Tier 1s, they probably have a little bit more control over their players in their professional environments in terms of the type of training they're doing and that sort of thing. For us, our players are a wide range of different clubs, different competitions
Right.
across the world. Some of them are at really top clubs, some of them are at second tier clubs in the UK or France. So they're in a lot of different training environments. So the big challenge for us when we come together is to get all our players to the same level of fitness and the level of fitness we need to be able to play at to take on Australia and Wales, for instance.
Exactly. We'll be back shortly on Speak Your Mind. Gold FM, only the classic hits. We're back on Speak Your Mind. Gold FM, only the classic hits. And our guest today in the studio with us is the Flying Fijians national rugby coach, John Mckee, who's been very nice enough to come in and talk about, leading up to the Rugby World Cup in Japan, preparations, as well as other stuff. Now, when you say that the national rugby team are well aware of the work that must be done leading up to the Rugby World Cup, what do you mean?
Well, we've really got to take it to a new level. I mean, I think in the time I've been here, we've there's been probably a steady, I think, progress in our performance. And common, in beating France in Paris was really important for us to win a big game away from home. And in recent years, we've won some big games at home, but that was the first time we'd won a big game away from home. So that was really important, but realistically, to be successful in the World Cup, we do have to take it to another level. I mean, I think from that performance, we can take some self belief in what we can achieve, and when we get things right, we can take on anyone. But we do know that the World Cup's another game, and everyone targets the World Cup for their performance.
Exactly. And, everyone's playing for the pride of their country, every single player. So, yes, a big competition. So we'll just have to see who has, that oomph, I should say, to actually get there. But what areas are you looking at improving on with the Fiji team to be able to face Tier 1 nations professionally?
Well, look, on one level, we look very hard at our training intensities to enable us to train to prepare to play Test match rugby. I think that certainly one of the things that we know is that the Test match rugby is the highest intensity game in the world. And if you haven't got the fitness to play at that level, we can be very competitive for 50 or 60 minutes, but would tend to drop off towards in the back end of the game, which we've seen happen in the past. So we're working very hard to make sure that we can maintain our level of of intensity and play across the 80 minutes.
Yeah.
We're working very hard to make sure that we've got good depth in our squad. We can't rely on our best 15 players to carry us through the tournament or carry us through 80 minutes of each game. And it's very important that we have the depth of players to especially to come into the game. You see at Test match rugby now that the reserves, when they come on, need to have an impact in the game, and we saw that in Paris that when our reserve players came into the game, from the middle of the second half, that they performed very, very well, and that's absolutely essential for us at World Cup. So we've got to work really hard on all our players to bring them up to a higher level. I think that one of the other areas that we've really worked on as well, and is our discipline. I mean, I think we've all seen Fijian teams in the past where some ill discipline has let them down, and I think when I first started coaching here, it was very rare for us to get through a game without having at least one yellow card or maybe even more, and we've worked very hard on getting our penalty count down and making sure that we don't do the silly things that could give us a yellow card, because we know to beat Wales, to beat Georgia, to beat Uruguay and Wales, we need to have 15 players on the park for the 80 minutes. We can't afford to have ill discipline to let us down. So that's another big work on for us, and it has been for quite a while now. And I think we can see a general trend down of less penalties against us and also less yellow cards.
That's good. So how did you teach them to do that? All right. Okay, then. So I know the Welsh team's coach, Warren Gatland, has named his Wales training squad for the 2019 Rugby World Cup. Now, when are we looking to name the Flying Fijians around?
We're quite close to naming a wider training group, probably of about 50 players. And it's really from this list that we'll make our selection for the June camps. I mean, most of our players European players are still playing in Europe. Some of them are just starting to finish their seasons if they're not in the playoffs. So we'll take a good look at the games next weekend and aim to put a 50-man squad out in the middle of May.
Okay.
That'll be narrowed down to 38 players. So 38 players will come into camp for the New Zealand Maori matches in July.
Oh, lovely. Now, how many players are we looking at from the team that won against France last year in the November test to feature in the Rugby World Cup in Japan?
Well, certainly. I mean, all the 23 players who played that night are right up on the list for selection for the Rugby World Cup, and will be in our wider squad when it comes out, and hopefully most of those players or all of those players stay fit and are on form and make the selection for the New Zealand Maori and the PNC.
Yeah, that's what you said. I mean, fitness and stamina really counts in rugby union. I mean, 80 minutes of just running up and down that huge field. I'd probably last only 5 minutes. But yeah, so what about local players? How many local players from the provincial competitions do you think will make the cut to the Flying Fijians?
Well, we've got a good group of local players here who have trained very hard in the off season, and some of them are on the November tour last year. There's also some who featured in the Fiji Warriors earlier this year, and the Drua team last year that won the NRC Championship in Australia. So of those players, that they're certainly pushing for spots to make spots in the national team, and they've been training very hard, doing extra training around our academy programs here, as well as now playing for their provinces in the Skipper Cup. So I'm out on the weekend watching Skipper Cup games, watching the form of those players. We've got some games coming up as part of the Western Force Global Rugby Series. Starts in 2 weeks' time, where there's games home and away against Western Force and Samoa. So all the players who are in contention, the local players, will be training and playing with that squad. So I'll be helping out with some of the training sessions there and keeping a close eye on the players. But certainly, I hope those players really maintain their form and push hard for for a spot in the national team. And we know, players like Frank Lamani are really making a name for themselves.
Right.
Was our starting player on the November tour, so he's been a standout who's come through the ranks here, through the academy program in the under-20s and also, some young front rowers, some back rowers. And, from last year, and talking of the Drua, last year, Albert Suisui and Freddie Vaidakani played in the Drua last year, went on the November tour of the Flying Fijians and since won contracts in Europe, so that they're both playing at London Irish now, who in the English competition. So for those players, for local players, they can crack it through the Drua and the Flying Fijians. It opens the door for them for professional contracts overseas. So it's a very important pathway for those guys.
Right. Now, who are some of the key... Well, hang on. We'll have to come back on Speak Your Mind. Gold FM, only the classic hits. Welcome back to Speak Your Mind on Gold FM, only the classic hits. Hope you're enjoying the program. And our guest is the Flying Fijians national rugby coach, John Mckee. This is a live radio talkback show, so if you're listening in and you maybe want to ask a question, you're most welcome to call in 3220906 or 3220907. If you have a Digicel phone, it's 77-32907. Now, where we left off, Coach, who are some of the key players that you think will make a huge impact in Japan?
Oh, you see, I'm very pleasing for me, watching our players play in top competitions around the world and seeing the impact that they are having, and I expect them to bring that form to the Flying Fijians through our campaign. But certainly, you look at players like Semi Radradra. Now, was playing at the Parramatta Eels, came back to rugby union, and is now playing at Bordeaux in France. An outstanding player for us, and was very decisive player in that victory over France in November. And I expect Semi to have a big impact in the Rugby World Cup. He's one of our absolute world class players. In the forwards, Leone Nakawara has been a top class player for a long time now. He's still playing very, very good rugby for Racing Club in Paris. He's a player who just absolutely loves playing for the Flying Fijians and coming back and representing his country. And I expect Leone to be a standout player. He's another player, absolutely world class lock forward, and one of the best going around. Other players on the up and up. Viliami Mata, who of course was with the gold medal team at Rio in the sevens, and went across to Edinburgh. He's just won the Player of the Year in the Guinness Pro 14 competition.
Too good.
He's developed very quickly into a world class number 8, and I can expect him to have a big impact in the Rugby World Cup as well.
Yeah, I mean, goodness me, it's funny how these sevens players, they do really well when they do join rugby union, don't you think? We've had quite a few of them that have just progressed from sevens to rugby union.
Yeah, it's been quite a pathway for quite a number of the Flying Fijians, and they're really good athletes. I think sevens gives them a good game understanding and a good understanding of space and running and keeping the ball alive, and that they transfer that into the 15s game. That makes them something special.
Exactly, that's what I thought too. Now, how do you prepare your team mentally?
Well, there's a lot of things we do to make sure that we're mentally prepared for the Rugby World Cup. I mean, partly it's around our team culture and our team values to make sure that the players are living the values all the time. We have our values within the team, and to make sure that everyday players live by the behaviours we agree upon, because that's really important. They can't expect to be really good players on Saturday, but not good trainers during the week. And it's your whole lifestyle. It's not just what you do on the rugby field. So that's an important part of what we do. So that helps our players become better players. I don't like a team where there's lots of rules. and regulations. I mean, we try to develop a culture where the players self-policing almost, that they know the behaviours expected, and they live by those behaviours, because ultimately you get better players and better people that way, and you know, it's sort of an old saying that better people make better rugby players, and that's what we're looking for. On the other side of the thing, you know, there's, you know, you go to the World Cup, you know, it's some of the biggest games the players have played, big crowds, a lot of media attention, you know, a lot of expectation from back home and around the world. So we deal with that as well, and partly it's on the level of players being having very good clarity around our game plan and what their role is in our game. So that actually takes the pressure off them, because they can narrow their focus rather than trying to think about everything, and also having it's almost like a little mental checklist of the things the boxes they need to tick to help them prepare for a game, and help them be in the best space they can be when they run out onto the field. For some players, it may be actually to have some things written down on a piece of paper, a little list to go through. For some players, it may be having some favourite music they like to listen to, so that puts them in a good space, and it helps them focus. For a lot of our players, it also revolves around religion as well. You know, we're very respectful religious group of players. That for some of them, it could be Bible readings or gospel sort of music that helps them get ready. So different individuals have different ways of getting themselves to the right place when they run out on the field. Because what you want in the World Cup, you want players to be excited by the anticipation of playing, but not overwhelmed by the pressure of performing. Because if they're overwhelmed, they'll find it hard to reach their potential. But if they're just in the right space, they're excited by it, but they're in the right space, they'll be able to really show their talents and play really well together as a team.
Yes, that is so true. I mean, also to be keeping their composure, right? But that's very nice. Thank you. So how do you train your boys not giving away penalties? I asked them before. I'm going to ask you again.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've actually done a lot of work in this area. That you know, we do a lot of analysis around, you know, where we infringe and what the infringements are for. And for some of the things we bring up, they're team issues, and we deal with the whole team. For other things, it could be individuals who are, you know, they could have poor tackle technique or things like that, which put them in the red line almost.
Yes, I was thinking sometimes, is it accidental? I mean, I can't help thinking that. But then you've also got people who say professional fouls, you know. So I don't really know.
Well, the thing is, I mean, is accidental? Some things look a little bit accidental, but we know now, and it is a good thing that in the game they're really looking after the head area to avoid complications with concussions. So, you know, any tackles above the shoulder or anything making contact with the head area is going to be dealt with very harshly, and probably the minimum of a yellow card, maybe a red card.
So is it different from the old days?
Yes,
they made it much more stricter?
Yeah, it's certainly it's much more stricter now, and you know, and they've got TMOs, so they've got TV cameras watching.
Right,
they've also got the assistant referees watching. So there's
It's a good thing, I reckon.
It's a good thing for the game. It's made the game a better game, but for our players, you know, so we need to make sure. Partly it's on tackle technique, making sure that their tackle technique, you know, they tackle low and tackle with their shoulder and their arms.
Right.
All those little things. You know, we talked before about the basics of the game. That's one of the basic things of the game that they do.
See.
But there's also in the mind to keep we call it blue head, to keep a nice clear head. There's a bit of expression, you know, fire in the belly, ice in the mind, because if they get fire in the up here in their headspace, they can overreact and get a bit angry and things happen.
That's when the mistakes happen, eh? But we'll be back shortly on Gold FM. This is Speak Your Mind. Speak Your Mind on Gold FM, only the classic hits. I do hope you're enjoying the program. Thank you a lot for your company. And this is a live radio talkback show. And you can call if you like 3220906 or 3220907. You can also call 7732906. Now, this is our last segment. This is your only chance if there's a question that you'd like to ask Coach Mckee. Now, we were talking about, you did reveal to me how what you do so that the boys don't commit penalties. That was really interesting. Thank you. Now, what are your training sessions like, Coach Mckee?
Well, we across the week we have a variety of different training sessions, I guess, and we sort of have a bit of a theme for each day. And at the start of the week, low intensity game understanding. So probably a lot of coaching, not too much movement, and so players understand our game plan. Then we move into a much more physical side of our game. And on a typical, if we were playing on a Saturday game, a Tuesday would be our big physical day. We'd do gym work, we'd do scrums, we'd do tackling, we'd do all the contact sort of work. So and probably do two sessions, a session in the morning, and the afternoon. So at the end of the Tuesday session, the boys are pretty tired. Wednesday's generally a training-free day. It doesn't mean that the players aren't doing anything, but it's training-free. So there could be some recovery, maybe some pool sessions, some stretching. A good chance to do some one-on-ones for the coaches with the players, or do some video analysis with the players. Thursday we ramp it up towards the game because we've already done our physical work. So on Thursday we do less physical, and we call it our fast day. So we try to do everything at high intensity at match speed, so the players get used to executing our game plan at match speed, which is really important. Then Friday is what we call the captain's run. So it's really usually we go to the stadium where we're going to play. The players can have a bit of a walk through. They can get the feel of the stadium. It's as much psychological as it is for the players actually to rehearse some plays. But they'll have a light run through. They might play a couple of fun games on the field, and then they'll do a few line-outs and play a few of their plays. But it's really for the players, especially when you're playing away from home, when the players are not familiar with the stadium, that it gives the players a good chance to get the feel of what it's going to be like on match day.
Well, thank you very much for that. Now, what is the mood usually like in camp amongst you and the team?
Between me and the team,
Yeah,
I hope
it's
nice. I hope it's nice and relaxed. Maybe the players don't always feel that, but I think the pleasing thing of working with the Fijian team is that the players, I think, by nature are quite relaxed guys. So and the other thing is that the players really enjoy each other's company. So they spend a lot of time, around the hotel, around the team room, and it's an opportunity for them to I think to spend time together. That they enjoy that, and also for the coaches, it's important for the coaches and management to interact with the team as well. So sometimes we might have a meal out together, but generally we eat at the team hotels but the week, but between me and the team, there's a bit of a mixture of trying to give them some clear direction around the way we want to play, giving some individuals some clear direction about what things that they maybe need to work on. But it's not just what they need to work, it's also encouraging the players.
Yes.
Sometimes as a coach, you've got to be careful that you're not just telling players what they need to do better. You've got to compliment them on the things they do well as well, because the players do have a lot of talents, and they've got to keep doing the good things good, and as well as the work on. So I try to get a balance between that with getting to know the players a little bit better. In Fiji, it's important to know where people are from and a little bit about their family and that sort of thing. So I try to have little snippets of conversation with players to see how things are going with them and how things are going back home, or how their families are getting on.
That is really good. Thank you. Now, what about their diet? Do you control their diet as well?
This is always a very, very interesting one for us. I mean, I think generally across the board in our team, there are a few extensions, but most of our players could actually play a little bit lighter
Yes, that's true.
You know, I think, you know, if across the board our team, you know, there are some exceptions, but across the board, most of our team, if they were 2 or 3 kilograms lighter, they would actually be better players. So it's
Yes.
so you know, nutrition is very, very important. You know, finding the balance because they're training a lot, they need a high sort of calorie intake.
Yes, absolutely.
Because otherwise they'll just lose too much weight.
Yeah.
But if the players eat too much, and it can be a bit of a trap, especially around hotels, it's always nice. The buffet's there. It's always easy to go back and get a second plate. That you know we've got to pay close attention to that. You know we have our nutrition people who work with the hotels to look at the balance of food that's on offer. So nutritionally, it's got a good balance of all the right sort of stuff. We do daily well-being, so the players have to weigh in every day.
Oh.
So we can keep a track on players that way, and if players' weight is staying steady, or if their weight is drifting up, you know, certainly someone will be having a look at what's going on. but it's not just that. Also, you know, the players could be losing weight, and you need to see what's going on. I mean, sometimes you know we've seen cases where players got sick, hasn't realised, and they keep training, and they're dropping weight, but it gets picked up through the daily weigh-ins. But for most of our guys, it's to keep an eye on their weight and keep their weight steady. But it is a I wouldn't say an issue for us, but it's certainly something we need to be pretty attentive of.
Oh my goodness me! I mean, we've almost run out of time now, but. Just very quickly, for aspiring rugby players, as coach of the Flying Fijians, what qualities do you look for when selecting a player, or just some advice on how they can make this goal a reality?
Well, for me, you know, when I look at young players around Fiji, and you know, we see lots of schools rugby and the Kaji rugby, and you know, there's the great thing about this country is there's so much rugby going on for young boys and girls now are getting into it, which is great to see, and you know, and there's a pathway for all of them. But you know, for me, for young players, you know, talent is one thing. We see lots of good talented young players in Fiji, so talent is one thing. What we start to look for when players sort of graduate out of the school system and into the academy system are players who are prepared to work hard, because it needs talent plus hard work to be the total player. So I would say for all the young boys and girls out there who are aspiring as rugby players, really enjoy the game. You know, when you're at school, you know, some of the best years of your life, and in terms of sport, I mean, it's all fun and it's competitive, and you're with all your friends and your mates, and it's a really great time in your life, and you know, make the most of it, but don't forget the enjoyment element of it as well. Really enjoy it. But at the same time, you know, work on the basics, work on your catch and pass and your tackle technique, and all those little things that go to make a player. And then, you know, as you graduate from school, and you might get some opportunity around the academy or around the under-20s or around some other development teams. Look, you know, it's hard work that's going to make you a top class rugby player. So keep some balance in your life. It's not all about rugby, but remember, hard work will take you a long way.
Exactly. Thank you so much for coming to Speak Your Mind today, Coach Mckee. It was lovely talking to you.
Naka.
And best of luck for the Rugby World Cup 2019. I'll be definitely watching. On Speak Your Mind, Gold FM, only the classic hits. Hope you enjoyed the show. Until next week, Nisamo Demanda.